Hey there, my name's Rod Yates and you're listening to Humans of Music, a Jaxsta podcast. Each episode I talk to a music creator or industry professional about their life and career, the ups and downs of their journey and the lessons they've learned along the way. And my guest today is Nothing But Thieves vocalist Conor Mason. In some ways, Conor's life changed the day he sang in school assembly as a 13-year-old. It was from that performance that he was approached by guitarist Joe Langridge Brown, who asked Conor to join his band. As is the way with most high school bands, they never went far, but it was the start of a friendship that would see Conor call on Joe several years later and ask him to join Nothing But Thieves just as they were getting started. Over the past 7 years, the band have become one of the UK's biggest musical exports, touring the world, playing the late-night TV talk show circuit in America, and hitting the top 10 in the UK. But it's not all been smooth sailing. As the band toured the US off the back of their debut album, Conor suffered a breakdown, unsettled by the divorce of his parents, the rigours of the road, and a mind that he says would not slow down. As he explains in this interview, he's since learned to tame those impulses and has found happiness through concentrating on mindfulness. He also talks about the early days of the band, why they struggled to be accepted, and his formative years singing in the car. But we started off by talking about the band's new album Moral Panic, and how a conversation while touring the Broken Machine LP helped inform the record they ended up making.
Specifically, remember, I was actually in Australia. I was in Sydney with Dom. We were doing that walk around the harbour that you can do, that every tourist does. And he said to me something like, this was before we did this third album, he was like, I think the melodies and the songwriting could be better. And I remember being like, that sucks. But he was just like, because he just started doing, he's a producer, he's amazing. He started doing sessions with pop and hip hop and R&B people, and that's everything that I've always listened to anyway. I'm like hugely influenced by hip hop and R&B, and I thought, you know what, let me just dive into my world outside of the Thieves and like dissect it in a way. And I just like studied flow and cadence and rhythm and just different ways of doing melody that I didn't think about before. And it's definitely inspired a lot of the melody on this record to just think a little bit outside the box and be more interesting rhythmically, and melodically.
And when we spoke before, you sort of said that the album was a guiding inspiration for the album was the tension in the air. And you can really sense that in a song like Phobia, which feels very claustrophobic, and you sound so weary when you're singing it. And some of the lyrics in there are really interesting. You've got that line, I fucking hate the internet, 5-star hotel and I don't feel well, and I'm at the stage I fear the most. So it feels like there's a lot going on in that song. What was the inspiration for it? It's literal character based, which I love. It was obviously you always have parts of you in anything, and obviously we all do. Like we discuss these sort of things. But this song was it was character based, and it was almost this, I hate to say it now, but this almost like Marilyn Manson-esque, just ruined character in the 21st century. He was exposing his ugliness onto the world and having the world's ugliness reflect back on him, and him being like, I don't want anything to do with this. So it's it's, for me, that it's one of the most visual songs. It's one of the most, it's like I can see it as I'm hearing it, and I really like that in the song. You can follow the story with the visual, and I really like that song in this sense. And I think it's one of the darkest songs we've ever done, and some of the favourite lines on the record. Another song which sounds quite apocalyptic is This Feels Like the End.
I really like that song as well. But that song is dark. That song is that feeling of just absolute what is left out there. This album is very pessimistic, but I think it's quite just realistic. It's just taking a step back and really like going, are you happy with everything? Are you happy the way you live your life, the way this is, and the way it's going forward, you know?
What caused that line of thinking?
I mean, so the album was written 2 years ago. It wasn't even through what the current situation is. It was written for Brexit, and it was written for the kind of denial of climate change. And it was written for us leaving the EU and Trump being in power at the time. Whereas now it feels more fitting it feels more fitting now. It feels more relevant now than it did back then. And I think we were worried that it would feel out of sync because we had to delay the album a little bit more than we would have liked. But now it feels like it fits better now with the current climate, what we're going through.
Yeah. When was the first time you heard the album back in full, finished?
I don't know. So we recorded it in November. Maybe heard it back in before Christmas in December. I was pretty chuffed with it though. I think by the time we finished recording it though, you do want a break from it. You've been sitting on the songs for so long. But it was amazing, and Mike Crossy's incredible. I think December time.
Do you ever, when you listen back to something like that, do you ever think about how far you've come? Yes and no. I feel that you're just constantly on a treadmill in a way with a band. I don't think I ever stopped to smell the flowers, and I probably should a bit more. Even with live shows and stuff, I think the first time I've stopped and reflected back is when we put the O2 on. We announced that recently, and I was just like, whoa, bloody, like, what is going on? That, I think everything else though really has been 7 years of just constant going and just turning the wheel, which is it's been amazing. But it is really important. That's a good question, because we don't do that in the music business. You never stop and just look at it. But yeah, I think when the O2 was announced, I did look at and think, wow, how have we done this? How have we got this far? And you still feel like you're three mates from Southend, it's quite amazing. Yeah. Well, when you think back to Joe contacting you the first time, your guitarist, Joe, I understand it was after you performed.
I contacted him, actually. Yeah.
What's that, sorry?
I contacted him because we were in a band when we were kids, and he went to uni. And then I started this band, and it's like, Joe, let's go. Yeah,
no, I was thinking even earlier than that. I thought
I was 13.
Yeah, because you sang at a school assembly, is that right? And then he.
Wow, you've done your research. Yeah, I guess so. So Joe was in this band with a few kids at school who they were a bit older than him. A bit older than me, and it was like a funk rock band. It was dreadful, but they didn't like their singer, and just saw this little show off in assembly. Back then I was a show off, terrible. But no, I'm not now. But and that was dreadful. And then they just asked me to do the band. I was 13 years old, but it was the best time of my life.
Yeah,
it's great. Well, one of the best times because it was just hanging with these older kids and going to older parties.
What did you sing at the assembly? Do you remember?
Yeah, actually, this is a sick song. It was Jackson Browne, Sky Blue and Black. Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
I was a huge Jackson Browne fan growing up, and there was this teacher who was doing this. I can't remember what he was doing, but it was some sort of American songwriters thing, and he asked me to do Jackson Browne, and I really fell in love with it, and did that song in assembly. But that was one of like 3, but that was a song I remember that they asked me after. I mean, I think I did like James Brown as well. I was multi-talented. But yeah. And then they just asked me to be in a band. But it was great. It was just so nice to get a feel for what band life is. And I fell in love with it, Yeah. I never stopped falling in love with it. It's just the best. It's just so much fun.
Yeah. So you had a confidence quite early. You felt comfortable getting up on stage in front of the rest of the school.
Yeah, I think I've always had a quiet confidence though. Like I think my parents have never like how do you phrase this like better, but like blown smoke at my ass essentially. They've never given me a huge ego, but I just understood that I had a gift for singing, and I don't know why performing, but it just obviously I just had it. My dad was weirdly he was in a Catholic gospel singing group when he was a teen. How is that even a thing? But I think they just stole the idea of doing gospel for their church. My dad was raised quite Catholic, but and he was always singing around the house. So I always, I guess, tuned in with that, and it was always a big part of my life. And it was always about soul music and R&B, like I was saying to you. And Yeah, so I've always sung. I always knew I was good at singing. So, but I don't think I've ever been one to like brag about it or flaunt it. I think there's other things that I like to work on more. You know, being in a band is difficult. There's so much stuff. It's you know, it's running a business. It's running a 5-piece marriage. It's songwriting. It's this. You know, there's loads to learn. So I think the singing, I always just went, I've got it. I think I've got it down, and I'll just leave it there. I have obviously I push myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm a bit of a perfectionist with everything, and with my singing, if I ever heard something, I'm a bit like a mimic bird, I guess, where like if I hear something, I think, oh, can I do that? How do I do that? I'll figure it out. I won't stop until I've nailed it. Like I love that. I love the thought that I could do anything if I put my mind to it with my voice, and that's a nice gift to have. Yeah.
And you mentioned your dad, and from what I understand, one of your earliest memories of music is actually going on car trips with your dad and singing and doing duets together. What do you remember of that?
That is so funny. You're either clairvoyant or I said this in early interviews. Yeah. I mean, I remember a lot of him swearing at drivers a lot. No, I'm joking. But no, my dad was he had a great musical collection. So yeah, it would range a lot. It would range from like Nina and Ray Charles, but Led Zeppelin, and then he introduced me to odd bands like Blink-182 and Wheatus, which I did connect with at being a teenager. I was like, wow, wicked, you know. But I always had the love for the old school stuff, and he was massively into country, which I never quite got. I couldn't get my heart into it. I appreciated some of the stuff, but I found it like a bit formulaic. And we even went as a band to Nashville, and it was great, the experience. I mean, obviously we've been to play, but like we went really early on at like 19 to like just get a feel for what that is and the songwriting and stuff, and meet people and producers. And I remember out of the 3 cities, we had Nashville, LA, and New York. And Nashville felt the most clinical, and it was always like, you have your tagline at the end of the song, and these are your 4 chords. And it was just like really great songwriting, which was definitely used in certain things. Even songs like Impossible and the new record would not have been able to think of that without the knowledge of learning from Nashville or country. But I've totally gone off topic here, obviously. But like,
keep going.
I do find it quite formulaic, and I think that's one of the best things about this band is like we don't have a formula. We just go at it and just do it and see what happens.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So yeah, country probably like was singing that along with him too, but never really liked it. I remember I took the piss out of me once. I was like, "Don't take the piss out of this song," and I was like, "Can't help it. It says cornbread and chicken in the lyric." Alan Jackson. I remember it.
But what kind of feeling did you get from singing with your dad?
Good feeling. Yeah, I've got a really close bond with my dad. I'll never stop having that, and I think a lot of it comes from the music and looking up to him in that sense, and looking up to his voice. And it is that sense. It is that thing. Is that I've always wondered why people get fascinated by singers and their voices and stuff like that. But I guess I had the same thing when I was a kid, growing up and listening to my dad and being like, just thought it was really cool. I was like, wow, I can sing. That's amazing. So I totally get it. Obviously now I'm just like, you get used to that sort of thing. But yeah, I totally get it. But yeah, I definitely, those memories of being in the car with him, and I'd be in the house and you just hear him on the top floor just singing in the shower so loudly as well. I have one good memory actually. He'll love this. We were at a holiday somewhere in Greece or whatever, and there was a Freddie Mercury impersonator on stage that was asking people to if they could copy him and if they could hold a note. Which, by the way, my dad did it. He held the entire note. The Freddie impersonator was like, "Oh shit, this guy can actually do this." And I was like, "Yeah." I was impressed with him.
And what about your mum? Was she musical?
Well, yes and no. It's like her dad was a trumpet player. I play trumpet as well, and I picked that up from my granddad, so my mum's dad. My mum is she loves music. What she can do. She can play "Strangers in the Night" on a recorder, and that's the furthest she can get with music. We all got a passion for it. But yeah, my dad, my mum's family are like, yeah, in the classical world of trumpet, and there's a pianist in the family and stuff. But I think it's ingrained in our family massively. My sisters both played piano and flute and clarinet and stuff like that. So we had a really big musical upbringing.
What do your parents? What did they do, or what do they do?
So my dad works in banking. He's a relationships manager, and my mum is a teacher.
And how did they feel about as music became more serious for you?
I think obviously 100% were pushing me at first. I was going to Nottingham University to read English, and I got approached by my managers who just said, look, ask your university if you can defer a year or two, and we'll see how this goes. And obviously, worst comes to worst, and it all fails and we don't get signed and nothing happens, then go to university. And I thought, that sounds a fair thing. That's fair. And Dom did the same thing. Joe was already at university, but Dom and I both deferred. And I think, at first year, I think mum and dad were like, yeah, brilliant, go for it, you got it. You know, and my dad's obviously like, would be living his life through me a little bit. He was like, I never made it in music, so this is great. So he was really pushing me. And then it got to the second year and it got a bit sketchy, and we were like, we haven't got there yet. And I think it's because we took a long time in the first year just figuring out how to write. So we didn't even approach labels or publishing or anything like that until we had songs, which is a great thing to do. But it was all, we needed to do it within these 2 years, really. So yeah, towards the end of the second year, I think my dad was asking me like, look, what's going to happen? Are you going to be able to do it anymore? Are you going to pack it in? And I didn't have an answer. I was like, I've still got 6 months or something like that. And then I think like a few weeks later, we got offered quite a few record deals. So it was cool. I'm really glad because I was thinking about that the other day. I was talking to the boys. I was like, who would I be, or who would you be if we hadn't just had those 7 years of life? Like, I do wonder if I'd be way simpler and like less emotionally aware, all of the stuff that I am, and like my parents, so I had like the second album was a lot about this kind of breakdown, but like my parents got divorced as we started touring for the first time ever, and it just changed everything. Like, as in, I went from this really suburban, easy, middle-class white life of just like not having any real knowledge of anything, or like who I was, or even care about anything in a way. And then my parents, that whole side of my world just, split in half. And I went on tour, and I just suddenly went like, who am I? I was like, what is going on? Like, how do I function? How do I live my life? What is this? It was mental. So I had no anchor at all. And I just went off the rails mentally, and, like anyone in a band, just did things probably I shouldn't have done with, alcohol, etc. And like, just lost myself completely. And I do think that it's only now after all of these years that I've finally put myself back together, which is mad. But it's really interesting because it's like you go from one end of the spectrum to the other. And I do think the life of the band, of the road, it just changes you completely. It really does.
Well, to your point about what would you be doing if things hadn't worked out in that first 2 years, you were reading English. Where do you think you were headed?
I don't know. I think actually I always wanted to do something with music anyway. So maybe something to do with publishing world, or I loved the whole record label thing, or even to take the reading and writing. Obviously, maybe something to do with articles or reviews. I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to do something musical. I just wanted to study some English. I just liked reading books. But I had no idea. If anything, if I'm totally honest, I think I just wanted to I wanted to be a musician. I just wanted that. I just wanted to sing. It sounds so sad, but like what gets me up in the morning is knowing that I sing for my dinner, you know?
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, you've said that, and in fact, you tweeted about that recently. I think you were maybe it was a Jeff Buckley quote, or
yeah. It's so true.
Yeah, and the fact, I guess,
true.
what's been happening in the past 6 to 7 months, where I know you've been very active with live streams and whatnot, but you've not had that audience in, the ability to actually sing in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
And given how much singing means to you, how has this period treated you?
It's been really interesting. So in November time, I had a breakup, and I moved from London to Essex and thought, okay, this is great. I can, get back on my feet and just figure things out and kind of like, piece myself back together mentally. And then lockdown happened, and I was like, oh, here we go. Another kind of big anchor thrown away when you need that anchor. And singing, I didn't even realize until this time how much I needed it. That it became very clear very quickly. I was so used to just doing it all the time, festival hopping, gig hopping, everything, rehearsals, whatever, that it just stopped. And I realized it's almost my therapy. Some people work out this or that. It's like it releases a lot of tension in me. And then I just started doing these like cover sessions and stuff, and like doing these because I realized I just had to. I was like, I just want to sing.
After the break, Conor talks about the lessons the band have learned to preserve their mental health, and why he refers to himself not as the front man of the band, but the front mum. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with Conor Mason. Before the break, Conor was talking about how much he needs to sing and how much he loves being in a band. And we pick up the conversation talking about whether it was that clear to him when he first joined forces with Joe as a 13-year-old.
Massively. Like, I did relish being on stage. Like, my music teacher at the time, he said to me, I don't think you're ever going to make it in as a classical musician or anything like that, but you're a natural performer, you're an avid performer. And I was like, fuck, yeah, okay. I was like, nah, but he was right. But obviously I've taken a lot of that classical stuff and used it. But no, I just totally just was the most comfortable on stage. And I did loads of stuff at school, and it might not be cool to mention, but I used to do drama productions. I liked theatre, I liked acting, and there was loads of like musicals at school, and I did loads of brass bands and this and that. So I was just trying to always engage myself with something on the stage, whether it was a musical or theatre or whatnot. And I just felt really comfortable there, really confident. And yeah, just singing in a band just felt the most, it felt the best. It felt the coolest. It felt the most natural. I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. Being 13 and the guys were 15, 16, and they were taking me to parties with, older girls. And I was just like, oh, this is cool. Yeah. But I think I was a little bit more arrogant at the time, but now I'm way chill about everything. I don't take any of the band things seriously in a way. All of the travel and the fame, it just like, so I try and stay really grounded. But I love it. I absolutely love it. I just love music. I love singing. What else is there? There's nothing better.
And I think I guess before you released your debut album with Nothing But Thieves, you guys had done a bunch of EPs beforehand. And I think I read a quote from Dom where he was saying that initially, at least, the press and even the public didn't really quite know what to make of you guys. Was there that initial not quite pushback, but just that initial hesitance on the part of the media and the public to embrace what you were doing? Yeah,
when we did the first album, we had no idea what we were doing. We were three musicians, because it was the three of us who started the band first before we met Phil and Price, the drummer and bassist, and we were just experimenting with songwriting. We'd always been pretty good musicians. Dom's amazing, guitarist, pianist, just theorist, and he's just a natural guitarist. He's just one of those guys who just taught himself, but he can pretty much play anything. I love that. So we'd always had that string to our bow, and we had to learn what it was to be in a band and write, etc. So the first record was just experimenting, and just didn't know what sound we were, didn't know where we were going. We had roots in rock, but I'd always had roots in pop and like I said, like R&B and soul, and I was always just trying to eke that in. And Dom listened to quite almost like heavier music at the time. So that, I don't know how much of that got in, but basically what I'm trying to say is we were just experimenting, and no one knew what to make of it. We didn't know what to make of it, but I think the second album, because the first album did well enough, we were like, okay, so no one's freaking out. Sounds good. Let's stick with it. And yeah, we thought, okay, so Nothing But Thieves has these light and these dark shades. It has this rocky moments. It has these ballads, and it has this, the use of my voice in more of a ballad setting or more of a beautiful setting. So we knew that, okay, that's roughly the blueprint. So what the second album was just kind of honing in on those things and pushing them a bit. And then when it came to this album, I think we just had the creative leniency really to just do what we wanted. Like, we just thought, well, we've done this kind of plethora of songs and sounds and experiments, and I think that's exactly what makes Nothing But Thieves. And I find that so exciting.
And if you think back to those days when people weren't really quite understanding the band, and was there ever a time where you got discouraged?
I mean, I think it was, growing up and starting the band, it's a well-known fact that you're going to get reviews on an album. So maybe the first album, we were like a bit like, oh, we should really care about what people say, or we should read these reviews, and you just do it because you think it's part of being in a band. But I don't think it didn't squander it, because solely the fact that we were just selling out huge shows everywhere, and it was like, okay, something's clicking, someone's liking this, fans are reacting, there's something that they're connecting to and staying with. Our fans are like really dedicated, really they're not just here for like the song that they like or this and that. They're here for the whole package, the whole story, everything about it. That, and I've never, I've never experienced that, and it's almost a bit like 1D or like Vamp's kind of fan base, where they're so rabid with us and they really love us, and it's amazing.
Well, there was I think it was about 2017, you wrote this great article for The Independent around mental health, and you were talking, and just to quote a couple of the lines from it for you, one of them was, for people who come into this lifestyle as kids, it's bewildering with no rule books and very little guidance.
I think I was in a bad place at the time, but yeah.
What bewildered you the most?
I think there's another line in there which is true. It's the love bombing. That line that stuck to me.
When you get love bombed by an audience.
Yeah, so like I said to you, obviously without going too crazy mad, dark into it. Like I said, when I first started touring, my parents split up, and I was just in this. I didn't have any anchor, and also I guess I felt I was missing that family attention in a way. So being on the road and just being. And then this isn't just for someone who's been through that. I think this is just for anyone who's in a band. It's true. I'm just talking about my experience. But you get on stage and you just get, absolutely love bombed, and people just explode their almost like their turmoil at you, and their love. They want to connect with the music and with you guys on stage so much that they just explode it out, and you really take it in. And I think I had to learn. We all did. I do think that I went through some struggles with it, but I did quickly learn to notice it as almost not real, as I don't know, it's not reality. It's over emotion in a way. It's people enjoying themselves in the highest form, because that's what music and live shows does to you. But we definitely all went through things of like your ego like inflates a little bit, and everyone started being a bit like, oh, we're this and we're that, you know, and then it was just that as my mental health degraded and like the band was getting busier and things were falling apart, we quickly, like, because we, you know, when as much as we got, you know, you get carried away with that as a band, we quickly were smart enough to go, come on now, like, this is a serious thing, a business, and it's like we're all kind of mentally falling apart a bit, and especially myself, like, and the guys were worried, and it was a quick turnaround. We just thought, okay, well, let's do this properly. Let's do the tours. I'm mainly talking about the amount of tours we were doing as well as the amount of shows. We were talking about, okay, well, let's do it smarter. So we do 3 weeks, make sure we have a week off, and then, you know, and it's like instead of doing 2.5 months in America and then going straight to Europe for a month and a half, we were just being smarter about it. And we just said to ourselves, look, if that is at detriment to us, then so be it. But our mental health comes first.
Well, who supported you through that period? Because as you said, it is a music business, and no doubt there are people from the business side who make money from you being on the road and make money from you touring. So did you ever feel a pressure to try and fight through those issues that you were facing?
100%. That was almost the catalyst of everything. It was like I was on tour in America, and we just started getting bigger out there, and we had all of these TV slots, like Conan and Kimmel and stuff like that booked up, and I was falling apart at the seams, it seemed. I said to myself, though, because I'm strong-willed as well as I was suffering, and I said, like, we've only just got here. I've only just started making it here. Like, I need to be here. I don't know what to do, because I would love to go home and just speak to some doctors but I was between a rock and a hard place with that. And my team were amazing. They really, really were. They all said, like, this is completely up to you. If we want to cancel the tour and we go home, we go home. But obviously, you know, in their heart of hearts, they're like, we're on the precipice of something here. And like, we had Trip Switch blowing up in America. And I knew I had to push through it. But it did definitely make it worse. It was terrifying. Like, imagine like those shitty motels at the side of an interstate, you know, and you're just there franging in bed every day for 2 months. And it was shit. It was shit hotels, shit cars, shit food, shit everything. It was just terrifying. And it was just making it worse and worse. But we had these amazing shows and amazing opportunities, so it did get me through it. But my team were amazing. They were. And my record label are genuinely so lovely. And I have to admit, like, I feel very lucky that with a UK-based label and with the specific team I have, they really were caring. They really looked after me, and they were like, look, go home if you want to go home. And in a way, it made me think, well, this is becomes more human than anything. So I really appreciate that. And then as soon as I got home, because I didn't have any money at the time, and they paid for doctors in like Harley Street in London and stuff like that. And it was incredible. So they properly supported me and like made sure I was good, and always have been supportive still, you know, because I think when you go through something that bad, it just leaves scars inside you that they're just always there. I feel like I'm constantly having to check them and like battle them, but it's way better. I'm glad we pushed through it, and I pushed through it, because, you know, the opportunities have been amazing, and I'm good now, so can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say you seem good now, and again, looking at your Twitter feed, and you know, there's, I guess, a lot of talk about finding inner peace and being in the moment. Where did that come from? Like, was that a reaction to what you went through, that you tried to develop that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like, I really only pieced myself together the last sort of 9 months. I had spent, all of the band stuff was a good about 4 years ago, and there was other stuff with like family and stuff that is like really dark, but like it just I just didn't deal with it. Like, I just pushed it somewhere, I guess. I don't know if that's a stupid male thing to do or just a human thing to do, but it was the opposite of what I wanted to do. And it just sat somewhere for years and years. And then I had problems with my relationship, and it was all holistic, where it was just nothing was getting sorted out, and nothing with my relationship or nothing with my health was getting sorted out. And it was in October, November, and I definitely like released a lot of it on the recording process. It was innate. It was just like I went in the booth and I was like, and what I do in the booth is like completely section myself off so no one can see me, because I know I get a bit wicked when I'm recording. I just kind of dive into myself and pick up from places. And I really said to myself, this is your chance to, because I knew something was coming. I knew that something was going to explode soon in terms of whether it was my relationship or whether it was just me. And I thought, let's just get it out vocally, because there's one thing talking about it, but like being able to just explode it out was amazing. So the record is full of dramatic vocal and angry vocal and really emotional vocal, and a lot of it. I'm really proud of that, and I'm so glad. I've lost my train of thought. What your initial question was?
No, it was just asking you about the fact that you found that inner peace and whether that was a reaction.
That was great. Because that's what I'm saying. So after I came home from that, I got to Leon C and said to myself, like, your mind has been your biggest enemy for like 5-6 years. And I just started studying. A producer friend of mine put me on to Eckhart Tolle and spiritualism, because I was always saying about how I can't put my mind down. I can't disassociate from it. And people naturally don't have such a busy mind. I think it's in my genes. My mum has it. My sisters have it. I don't know if my dad has it. It's probably more on my mum's side. But yeah, and I thought, okay, great. I need something to help me, because it was just pills and medicine for years. And oh God, I was sick of it. And I just felt like I was falling apart. I'm not religious in the slightest. Like it's almost like I'm an atheist spiritualist. I've really believed in, we all are one organism. And in a way, that's why with all the BLM stuff happening and with all the hate you see online, it's just, it really made me so sad, because it was, I couldn't, because I'd gone through this spiritual journey, whatever, I couldn't understand or compute people's hate. And what I learned is that your ego and your mind isn't you. And what it does over years and years is like a sponge, just soaks up all of the hate, and it's like it's almost constantly in flight or fight mode. So your egos are constantly talking to someone else's ego, and that's essentially what racism is. Really, it's this is what my ego thinks you are, so I'm going to expel it at you, rather than going, hold on a second, you're a human being. Yeah. And that's what I learned from reading Eckhart Tolle and spiritualism. I want more people to understand that they can disassociate from their mind. Mine was just for my mental health, so I could like control my thoughts, or like basically just accept them. Now I'm just like way more, just have more of a peaceful mind, because when you have those thoughts, like you just let them be. Whereas before, I think it was like because I didn't know, it was just like a hamster wheel. It was like just spinning and getting faster and faster and faster. And it's like, I didn't know what to do about it. So I just learned how to disassociate, and it's just been the best thing. And I think the last 6-7 months just healed myself massively from my mind and from my past. And now I've just found so much peace, and I feel good. It's good.
That's fantastic.
What's more important? I just think that everyone strives for, money and power and everything that's literally, it will degrade. Whereas really what you should strive for each day is just for being at peace and just enjoying yourself and having good connections with friends and family and loved ones. That's the only thing that matters. That's what I think anyway. I want people to stop worrying about their futures and about money and this and that. Yeah,
absolutely. So I saw a quote from you where you said that you refer. In fact, it may have been an independent article where you refer to yourself as the front mum of the band and not the front man. What do you mean by that?
I love that, mate. Did make myself laugh. I've always been a big listener. I think I've always been, even if I haven't dealt with my issues like we just talked about, I've always been very aware of problems and what people can go through, and I've always been very sensitive to other people. And I think that with the band, I do think that I'm the one that they will come and talk to their personal problems with about. Like Phil struggles with his mental health and this and that, and I know he comes to me to talk about it because he knows that I will listen and I don't judge, and I feel like motherly in that sense. So yeah, I think that's where it came from. Whereas basically what I'm trying to say is that the front mum thing was almost a joke about the front man thing, about being that kind of arrogant, rock, egocentric, shirtless, the Doors kind of front man. And it's just I'm the opposite, where I'm more introverted, and I probably learned that from being in love with like Tom York and Radiohead, and being that world of front man, where you're in your own head and you're completely in a bubble on stage of the music and what you're trying to feel and express. And I think that's where I come from with the front mum thing, is that I'm more of a sensitive soul in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I think I've read an interview with you where you were saying that even as a kid you were quite sensitive, and one of your friends picked up on that not so long ago, and you were quite surprised because you didn't really talk to anyone about it other than your mum. How did that manifest as a kid? Like how did that sensitivity come across?
I mean, I'd probably say poorly. I think that I probably overly cared about shit that I shouldn't have cared about. I think definitely in my teens at school and stuff, being a boy just wasn't a thing to be in touch with your emotions, or care about what anyone else is going through, or like even want to talk about it. It's like I was probably seen as a little bit, maybe a bit of an outcast in that sense. I could switch it off and obviously like had, normal friendship groups and stuff like that, but I definitely had certain friends that I could be that person to. And probably I would say predominantly girls. Some of my best friends now are girls that I was best friends with back then, because I just felt that their souls were more open to being sensitive and talking in that sense. And I love that. And then as I've got older, I've really noticed my male friends now have all just become more emotionally aware and just constantly want to talk about that, and what they're dealing with and this and that. And I think it's amazing. I just think at that age, when I was a teenager, I probably was a little bit like, sensitive Conor over there. I don't know. I'm taking a piss. But it definitely was interesting. But I have a good friend now who, I won't mention his name, but kind of pushed me out of a friendship group because and then recently, I might have even been what you had mentioned. He said to me I'm sorry for that. I just didn't understand it at the time. You were just different. But now it's cool. And I was like, cool. It made me laugh. I definitely noticed that I was a bit more sensitive at the time. And maybe I didn't want to be. Maybe I just didn't. It was annoying me, but it was who I am. But I won't change. You just can't change who you naturally are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you have any rough times in your teens because of that sensitivity? Like, were you accepted by your peers largely?
Oh yeah, no, largely for sure. I got the sensitivity from my mum, but they were also incredibly outgoing and great fun, and I got that too. I love having big groups of friends, and I love partying, and I had a big social group. So I was totally fine in that sense. It was just certain people and stuff like that would probably be just wouldn't understand me, but that's fine. No one will understand you completely. And I guess I had a way of being able to switch it on and switch it off back then, and be in social events where it's not about that. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed I enjoyed having my male friends who are more sensitive, and then obviously my female friends who are just, they are naturally more empathetic. I enjoyed those conversations. It's like the study of people. I still enjoy it. I still enjoy studying how people work and how I work. And I think, I just find it really fascinating.
Yeah. And just quickly on Nothing But Thieves' creative process, we've spoken about how much singing means to you and how it's almost the reason you get up in the morning. In terms of, I know that Joe writes the actual lyrics for the band, but obviously you discuss the themes beforehand and what's on your mind. But which of his is there a lyric in particular that he wrote that hit you most powerfully just because it summed up what you were feeling perhaps better than you could actually sum up?
Well, yeah, totally. When we were on the second album, I'd written a bunch of notes and sent them to him and discussed, basically just I'm falling apart here completely. And then he wrote the Particles lyric, and it totally obviously connected with everything that I was dealing with. And there was even the lyric in the mid-late that was like, Doctor, please, can you just switch me off? Because we were in America at the time, and I had no access to anything like that. It was like a hopeful message that I could go home and get well. So that one in particular, for sure.
So when you read a line like that, how did it hit you?
Yeah, emotionally, I think that the lyrics with Joe have always tended to come really late in the process. When it comes to recording, he'll probably finish them quite late, naturally. And it's more, so when I'm coming into a recording booth and reading them, and obviously everything we've discussed and everything we've talked about, I can really take it all and put it in my own experience and find a really emotional place to sing from. And that's what I think I do best, is that what I've learned from my favorite singers is not even technique or execution. It's just being able to emit your soul and whatever's inside you. So yeah, definitely react to it really well. But no, I love the way that we work, because I feel like when I'm at home and doing my own stuff and my own writing projects and stuff, I feel that it's always in a lane, and it's always in this sort of way. So when Joe's just got this mind for the outer world and for reading it, and I absolutely love it. He smashes it. And I don't know if you've heard the song Individual, but the passage he did at the end about Trump was just unbelievable. So good. Yeah,
very powerful. So Conor, just before we finish up, Jaxsta is all about giving credit where credit is due. Are there people in particular who you would give credit to for helping you get where you are today?
Yeah, 100%. I'd say there's this producer-writer couple called Julian Emery and Jim Irvin, who they just helped us discover the band. And just completely pushed my voice in a direction I didn't know I could use. I didn't even know I had a falsetto until I met these guys to produce the first record. I was just doing all of this big belty, top of my lungs stuff. Obviously there's still a touch of that. Well, quite a lot of that. But I didn't even know I had a falsetto. And then the first time I ever heard it was on our song Excuse Me, because I had the melody for Excuse Me down the octave, and then Julian, the producer, was like, why don't you just stick it right up the octave? And I was like, I don't think I can hit that. And then I did it in falsetto, and I was like, oh wow, okay. And then I just taught myself how to control it, learned it, because I had classical singing lessons when I was younger, but it was in a way it's almost like, it's like the engine of a car, but none of the detail, none of the color, none of the shape. It's like I knew how to support myself from those classical lessons, but I really taught myself to sing over the last 5-7 years. I just pushed myself completely, and I'm really thankful for Julian and Jim for finding my voice in a way and finding who I was, my character.
All right, Conor, look, thank you so much for your time, mate.
Thank you so much. That was fun. Sorry, I was a bit hungover. I've woken up now.
And that's it for another episode of Humans of Music. A big thank you to Conor for his time, and thank you for listening. This episode was mixed by Lachlan Mitchell from Parliament Studios in Annandale, and the incidental music and theme song were written and performed by Sam Lockwood. Please remember to subscribe to the Humans of Music podcast so you never miss an episode, or even better, feel free to share it amongst your friends, jump online and rate and review it. And remember, Jaxsta Pro is currently free, so if you make music or work behind the scenes in the music industry, head to jaxsta.com and sign up to become a Jaxsta Pro member. Until the next episode of Humans of Music, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for listening.